Hello, Aline. I'm Jo Frost, and I'm very happy to be talking to you today. Perhaps you could just give a little introduction to who you are and where you work.
Yep. I'm Aline Sam-Giao, so I'm the CEO of the Liège Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I've been there for a year and a half, a little more. And previously, so this is an organization with a symphonic orchestra, 97 musician symphonic orchestra, and a hall, a concert hall, a 1,000 seat concert hall, which is a historical hall. So it welcomed Mahler. He conducted himself his second symphony at the time, so we're very proud of it. And previously, I worked in France, so I'm French, although I live in Belgium now. So I worked for the Lyon Auditorium and Orchestra, some kind of organization, but a bigger hall. And at the same time, I was the president of the employer organization for all opera houses and orchestras in France. So that gave me a sort of broad overview of what was happening in France.
Oh, very interesting. So I believe you've been to Classical Next. This isn't your first time at Classical Next. You've been here before.
I've been there once when it was in Rotterdam before. So it's my second time at Classical Next and several years between the two of them.
So you're here at Classical Next this time and you are giving a talk. Can you tell us a little bit about that talk?
Yes, maybe first about Classical Next. I think precisely these talks are very interesting for me. I know there is also this network part, but for me I've always thought that the conferences I attend at in Classical Next are very helpful for me to, it really feeds me for thinking, for imagining what we could implement in our orchestras and organization, because it deals a lot with, of course, innovation and new ideas. And so I really like sharing these ideas, and I go back with a lot of motivation to do things.
That's good. So your session, which is later on today, is called Orchestras as a Safe Working Place. And from what I understand, the sort of subtext is the growing concern and cases in orchestras about moral and sexual harassment and violence is one of the hottest subjects today in orchestras. So as someone who isn't terribly familiar with how orchestras work, this was a topic that you were very keen to talk about. Why?
Because I faced it personally in the last 4 or 5 years, probably. And it first came from cases that arose in France at the time in the opera world. And at some point, the French Ministry of Culture said, okay, now everybody who receives subsidies from the government will need to address this subject. So it was compulsory. And so we had to face the subject. And so I started to raise awareness among the employees, to make sensibilization, training for the board of directors, but also setting a plan of action, and also seeing with some people from some lawyers how to deal with cases that would arise in our organization. And the funny, but it's not really funny thing, is that as soon as the employees were sensibilized, cases started to rise and to be put in the open. It doesn't mean that the cases were new. It means that there were cases, but they had not really realized that these were cases that we could not anymore accept in our organizations. So I had to deal with them, with my board of directors. And when I arrived in Belgium, the same appeared. One of the first subjects that musician came to me was kind of bullying, moral harassment, and so again I had to deal with this subject. So I think it's widespread in society in general, in the workplace,
not necessarily
in general.
Industry, no.
But there is some context element which makes that today it arises in orchestras as in cultural organization, and so we have to deal with. And it's a circle. It arises, so we have to deal with it, but also we deal with it, so it arises. So it's a sort of circle, and so And when we had this discussion before Classical Next with the group of professionals around us, some also said it was a very hot topic, and particularly in the United States.
So what are you doing specifically in Liège with your orchestra? How is this manifesting itself, this plan of action?
Well, when I arrived in Liège, there is not the same incentive from the Belgian government as in France. So there were no tools at all there. There had been no training. So there is just a compulsory training on this question. If you receive money, then in your contract receiving money, it says that the top management has to be trained for these questions. But it was not the case yet because the contracts are quite new. And cases started to arise before we had tools. So that is a tricky situation, and I think it's a tricky situation that most of the professionals face. So the idea of the session is also to give tools and to share tools on how to deal with that. So in Liège, for example, I had cases of bullying or moral harassment, and I felt I had been trained in France, but with the French law, which can be a little bit different according to the countries. So I dealt with the cases, but immediately I saw that we miss tools for the Belgium organizations. And so with the employee organization for all performing arts in Belgium, we created a working group, which I'm chairing, with 4 or 5 professionals from the theater, from the dance, from the music. And we are working now to set up trainings for all the members, but also to have a sort of declaration of good intention for all the members of this organization, and also to gather all the tools. It can be just a mention in the contract with the artist, and that is one of the tools that you can use. It can be a poster that you put in your organization, in the offices. It can be many things. So we are trying to gather good ideas from everywhere and to set a sort of toolbox for all the members.
Right. And is there yet a sort of a European network of how to handle this topic? Or is that the aim, to try and, I mean, raise? I presume at the moment it's raising awareness that it should be a requirement of all performing arts organizations that they have something in place to deal with this.
It depends on the local laws, I suppose. I think there is a growing awareness. I think there are cases, and there are cases in society. Just today, when we are doing the interview, there is the resolution of the case that was against Gérard Depardieu. So
a very high-profile case.
Yes, which everybody knows. So I think it's a growing awareness, but all governments don't work the same way. They are not in the same advance, and all companies don't as well. One of the problems when there are mandatory laws is that sometimes the professionals just do the training because they need the paper, and then they don't implement anything in their company. So another problem is that there can be people that are completely convinced in an organization that there should be some tools, but if the top management is not involved, then it doesn't move so much. So it's a very political question also of society, and it's for me it's as strong as the ecological questions in our organization. It's something quite broad, and in order to deal correctly with it, you also need to involve the teams you're working with, so that they propose ideas, so that they feel they are concerned.
And do you sense that there is a change or in attitude, and people are engaging with this? I mean, I think the fact that you are here at Classical Next, which has a very good international reputation, and that people from all over, the people from the US will see this as a talk.
I think my experience with the people I work with is that there is probably a generation thing. Because when I talk to older generation, they sometimes, it's very painful for them, because they even sometimes don't understand what they did wrong. Even if you explain it in the way they express, it's just normal, and they don't realize that they are hurting people. And even after explanation, they don't even realize. So, and on the contrary, each time we have a new musician in the orchestra, when they come to sign the contract, I receive them. We have a face-to-face talk, and I tell them a few of what I think are important rules. And one of them, I tell them that violence is not accepted in this organization. be it coming from them. They're not allowed to have any violence against anybody.
Which I think it would be normal, not necessary to...
And they cannot suffer from violence either, or even witness some. If they witness some, they have to report it. And at the beginning, when I start my speech, they are like with big eyes. And then when they understand where I go with that, they feel like it's a little relieved.
Yeah.
And I think they are thankful for me saying so when I hire them, because I suppose the younger generation has had some training in school, also more than the older generation on these questions. So they're happy to realize that this question is shared with their management and that it's a topic that can be discussed in this organization.
Yeah, I mean, I sense, the whole Me Too movement, and now that, as you say, at schools, at universities, this has been such a subject that's been discussed now for years, that I presume there's much more awareness, isn't there? This is an issue, as we've said, not just in the music industry, but in every single sector of society, sadly. But I think the fact that it's being talked about, and also that it has a platform here. And is there a central organisation, or is the aim to have a sort of organisation that people can go to as a resource?
Well, I think that is very helpful when it comes in each country from the government.
Yeah.
And particularly from the Ministry of Culture, when there is a Ministry of Culture. Because the laws are a little different from country to country, even if it's European, even though the principle in general are the same. And at some point, it's one of the difficulties of the case, is when you have a case and you have to treat it, it becomes really technical. The inquiry you have to make to see who is right, who is not right, it's really factual and it's really technical. So you need lawyers and you need to know very well the law of your country. And so I think what can be really helpful is that each country gets one anonymous group of lawyers specifically trained on this question, who can answer even for free, employers. Because the thing is, for employers, it's very difficult to handle. Very, very difficult. You don't want to be wrong. You don't want to harm somebody who is a victim or who is wrongly accused. So it's very tricky. So that, I don't know if it's possible at the European level. Maybe it is.
European Parliament, surely there'd be an incentive to campaign to have it on a sort of
probably
an EU level.
It could be possible because the rules are really quite similar. I mean, the description of what is sexual harassment or violence or moral, it's quite the same according to the country. It's a bit different. So I suppose that would be helpful. But I'm very much... Yes, I think here we try to share practices, and maybe the fight to get the lobby to get a sort of broader organization at the European level needs to be tackled by our employers' organization or whoever it is.
Well, it's really interesting, and I think it's really important and fantastic that you're here to raise this topic and to have it in open discussion. And I really look forward to how it will develop. I mean, perhaps it's something that should become a regular panel at events like this, just an opportunity for people to talk about, and not just a one-off subject.
I'm very curious to know, at the beginning of the panel, there is a little survey amongst the attendees to see who feels concerned by this question. So I'm really curious to know that. And then I suppose in a few years' time, or months' time, probably years' time, every organization will have its own tools and they will be working well. So there will not be needing any more this kind of session.
That's his hobby. Yes. Thank you, Aline. Thank you very much.
Thank you for Joe as well.